Financial systems depend on coordination before they depend on control. Activity is distributed across institutions, markets, and contracts, with no single center directing outcomes. Each component operates within its own constraints, yet remains linked to others through exchange, settlement, and obligation. This creates interdependence. Actions taken in one location affect conditions elsewhere, often without direct visibility. Coordination emerges through shared rules, timing conventions, and standardized processes. Prices, schedules, and clearing mechanisms align activity across separate decisions. No participant requires full knowledge of the system. Alignment occurs because actions fit within common structures, not because intentions are shared. Interdependence, therefore, does not imply unity. It describes a condition where outcomes depend on multiple connected processes operating simultaneously. Coordination occurs without continuous communication. Financial activity moves through predefined channels, rather than through direct negotiation at each step. Rules, protocols, and timing conventions establish expectations before interaction begins. Settlement cycles, clearing windows, and reporting schedules synchronize actions across separate entities. This synchronization reduces the need for mutual awareness. Participants respond to shared reference points, not to each other's intentions. Interdependence is maintained through compatibility. Processes are designed to connect outputs from one area to inputs in another, even when objectives differ. Standardization supports this link. Contracts, formats, and classifications allow activity to align without customization. As a result, coordination scales beyond local relationships. Dependence persists because disruption in one segment alters conditions elsewhere, even when connections remain indirect. The system holds together through structured alignment, not through centralized oversight. Interdependence becomes visible when processes rely on shared sequences. Activities are ordered in time, so completion in one area enables progression in another. Payment follows delivery, reporting follows settlement, and adjustment follows reconciliation. These sequences connect decisions without requiring direct coordination. Timing acts as a linking mechanism. Delays in one segment propagate through schedules, altering availability elsewhere. This propagation does not require intent. It arises from process design. Standard intervals and cutoff points translate local activity into system-wide effects. Interdependence is therefore temporal as well as structural. Coordination persists because timing remains predictable. Participants align actions to shared calendars, not to individual behavior. When timing shifts, dependencies surface. The system reveals connection through adjustment rather than through communication. Stability depends on the reliability of sequence, not on the absence of disruption. As sequences accumulate, pressure concentrates. When multiple processes depend on aligned timing, small delays compound. Bottlenecks form where sequences intersect because capacity is finite. These points absorb variation. Adjustment occurs not across the entire system, but at specific junctions. Clearing functions, settlement layers, and reconciliation stages bear disproportionate load. Interdependence becomes observable through strain. Disruption does not spread evenly. It gathers where coordination is most dense. Systems respond by prioritizing flow through these points, often by deferring activity elsewhere. Coordination is maintained by absorbing imbalance, not by eliminating it. Buffers are introduced to manage this concentration. Queues, reserves, and timing offsets hold excess activity when alignment fails. These mechanisms do not remove dependency. They postpone its effect. Stability depends on the system's ability to localize pressure rather than distribute it uniformly. Buffers alter how pressure travels. When excess activity is held temporarily, immediate adjustment is avoided. Queues absorb mismatch between arrival and capacity. Reserves absorb mismatch between obligation and settlement. Timing offsets absorb mismatch between execution and review. These devices slow propagation. Interdependence remains, but its expression is delayed. Strain becomes manageable because it is redistributed over time. This redistribution does not equalize impact. It concentrates responsibility within designated structures. Clearing agents, custodial layers, and liquidity facilities carry this burden. Coordination relies on their availability. When buffers hold, connections remain stable. When buffers fill, dependency becomes visible. Systems do not remove linkage, they regulate its speed. Stability emerges from controlled transmission, not from independence among components. Buffer capacity is not unlimited. It is designed to absorb variation within expected ranges, not to remove dependency. As activity accumulates, available capacity narrows. Queues extend, reserves decline, and timing gaps shorten. Pressure that was deferred returns to the system. Interdependence becomes visible through constraint rather than through disruption. Flows adjust where limits are reached. Some processes slow, others are prioritized, according to predefined sequence. Coordination shifts from absorption to allocation. This transition is procedural, not discretionary. Rules embedded in clearing order, settlement priority, and access conditions determine adjustment. When buffers thin, connections reassert themselves. Dependency appears not as breakdown, but as reduced flexibility. The system continues to operate, but within tighter bounds. Stability is preserved by narrowing movement, not by restoring independence. These patterns do not signal fragility. They describe how coordination persists without centralized control. Interdependence does not vanish when buffers narrow. It becomes explicit. Systems remain operable because dependencies are structured, sequenced, and bounded. Rules define how pressure is absorbed, how priorities are set, and how flow is restored. Order emerges from constraint, not from independence. Coordination is maintained by accepting linkage rather than attempting removal. Each component continues to act within local limits while remaining connected through shared procedures. This connection does not require consensus. It relies on compatibility. Financial systems endure by managing interaction, not by isolating parts. Interdependence, therefore, is not an exception. It is the condition under which distributed activity remains aligned. Stability arises because coordination adapts to dependency rather than resisting it.